let's get into the Denver Broncos, a team that was 8-9 last year, which is surprising to me. I thought they were worse than that. 8-9 last year, coming in with a win total of 5.5 only. Losses, not so much, but from impactful positions, really all those guys played meaningful minutes. Russell Wilson obviously is now in the Steel City up in Pittsburgh. Jerry Jeudy is gone. Where is Jerry Jeudy actually?
Cleveland. Got traded to Cleveland.
Oh yeah,
a new deal up there, and
him and Jameis are gonna have fun throwing each other the ball.
Yeah.
And then you got Cushenberry's out at the center, Josie Jewell, who's a really good linebacker, and Justin Simmons, who's a really good safety. So some key pieces on the defense there. And then your additions, I guess the MILF hunter himself, Mr. Zach Wilson, Josh Reynolds, who I think is a pretty good receiver coming over from Detroit.
Nice
yeah, Sam Mustaver, never heard of him. Maybe I don't know who that guy is. Was he a rookie?
No.
All right, well, shit. Okay. Lineman John Franklin Myers coming over from the Jets. He's a good player. Cody Barton coming over from the Commandos. Yeah. Levi Wallace, Brandon Jones, and then the big one, Bo Nix, right? Mr. Bo Nix from Oregon, finally leaving college. I feel like he was in college forever. Just one of those things. Like
he was one of those 8th-year seniors.
Exactly. COVID year times 3. So
yes, COVID year, 3 red shirts, a transfer year. I think.
What are we thinking about this Sean Payton-led Denver Broncos team? What are the?
I really don't know. I just hope for Broncos fans that Sean knows what he's doing, because I sure don't understand the direction that he's taken this team. Not that they've had a ton of changes over the last year. Like you said, they had pretty minimal losses. Of course, 3 or 4 of them did play meaningful snaps, meaningful minutes, whatever we want to say. But at the same time, like Russell Wilson, I believe, lost his job with a winning record last year.
That's so crazy to me.
Which is just wild. So I don't know what kind of ego play that is, or if it's just purely, Jarrett Stidham is the guy, or Bo Nix is the guy, and we just need to.
They were trying to do anything to not pay his contract out. That was a crazy, weird situation.
It is. I'm perfectly fine with them paying him to play in Pittsburgh, though. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think the big question is like, who's going to be the starting quarterback week 1? And I know we're going to talk about that here in a little bit, but like,
damn good
is it going to be Jarrett Stidham? Is it going to be Zach Wilson? Is it going to be Bo Nix, the rookie? Like, all 3 of them have their ups and downs, maybe not necessarily as far as Bo Nix goes, but he's a rookie. So it's just hard because they don't have, the best skill positions. They don't have the best offensive line. It's not bad, but on defense, they're okay.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's the perfect catchphrase for this team right now. They're okay. Yeah. Like, this is the most bland roster I've ever seen. And I mean, the win total reflects that, right? In the 5.5. Right. And, let's be honest, they weren't that much better of a team last year, and they got to 8 wins. So it's kind of, this team is a little bit interesting. It's like, sometimes they show flashes, but roster-wise, they should win like 3 games. But hey, maybe Sean Payton is rallying the troops. But I think the quarterback position, and losing Justin Simmons out of the back end and Josie Jewell, I think is going to make a difference. But really, their playmakers it's hard to get excited about this team. They're just kind of one of those teams that are just there right now. Sure. Let's talk about some of these injuries here. Starting with safety Caden Stearns, who had a patellar tear after season-ending hip surgery the year before. So a guy who, we just talked about other safety, so he's strong safety, free safety. Justin Simmons leaving. He struggled to stay on the field the past 2 years in a row. He's had season-ending surgery. So, he's coming off another one in week 1, which is just brutal. I hate seeing that for guys, man. You work your ass off to come back from a major injury, and then boom, week 1, you're out. So, but I mean, there is an injury risk when you come back from these big time injuries. So he's going to have another higher increased injury risk. Patellar tendon tear. So that is the tendon that connects your kneecap or your patella to your tibia. It's really just an extension of the quad tendon there for your quadriceps, but requires season-ending surgery, about 8 to 10 month typical recovery timeline. Because he got injured in week 1, he is coming off a 12-month recovery window. So how are we feeling about Mr. Caden Stearns?
Yeah, it's again kind of a tough spot for Stearns, just like with Dobbins that we talked about. You know, if you haven't played for 2 years, you're not gonna get better at playing football, especially from a defensive side. Like you have to read and react much more on the defensive side compared to the offensive side of the football, right?
Especially at safety.
Exactly, especially at defensive back, especially at safety. You know, with all of these lower body related injuries, like it makes me wonder, like, was the patellar tendon, was the quad kind of thing because of something,
compensation with the hip,
some sort of a compensation thing, right? From the hip related stuff.
Yep.
You know, if we've continued to rehab this quad, are we going to start compensating somewhere else? Are we actually getting through our entire rehab before we get this guy back on the field? So, you know, he does definitely have the timeline there. I'm not terribly worried, but at the same time, like, it's going to take him a little bit to just get back in the swing of things and get back to playing football.
Yeah, like it's, you know, he's gonna play this season, but what's he gonna look like, right? Like he hasn't played football for 2 years because he's been injured, coming back from 2 major injuries. And we can almost kind of retweet, rinse, and repeat with Tim Patrick, wide receiver there, coming off an ACL tear, tore his Achilles during the preseason in August 2nd. Achilles tear, we've talked about 10 to 12 month typical recovery timeline. And when we say recovery timeline, we're talking about when you can actually get back on the field and play football. When you can actually, not when you can run, not when you can straight line run, get back in practice. When can you react to other grown men trying to take your head off, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, 13 months is how much time he has. But again, I think we can just kind of say the same thing. He hasn't played football in 2 years, and it's tough to project him to have a great season coming off that. Now, he's not as listed as a starter right now. He's got Josh Reynolds and Marvin Mims and Sutton in front of him. But, you know, he's someone that potentially back half of the season, you know, if he can start producing, start being a waiver wire pickup or something like that. But then we start talking about what the hell is this quarterback room going to look like? Is this really something we think, you know, can this quarterback room really sustain a wide receiver 3 or a wide receiver 2?
And not really even so much the wide receiver, but like as an offense as a whole, like this is just a rotating piece everywhere with this offense. Like they have 3 or 4 running backs. So it's just going to be every other series, you know, just switching dudes out. You have 3 quarterbacks, so we're not exactly sure who's going to be the starting quarterback. Is it going to be Bo Nix? Is it going to be
Maybe
Zach
just
Wilson?
give them all a series, man.
Yeah, exactly.
The typical.
That you have 5 or 6 wide receivers that, you know, okay, they're okay. Outside of Cortland Sutton, like, are you excited about any of them?
Nope,
I'm not. I'm sure.
I do like Josh Reynolds, but not like he's not. If I'm a defensive coordinator, he's not keeping me up at night.
He's not. Yeah, he's not scaring me.
The tough situations for both Stearns and Patrick. Now we're going to talk about 2 guys, same position, dealing with a little bit different things. Those are tight ends, Greg Dulcich and Adam Troutman. We'll start with Troutman. Picked up a minor abdomen issue. Not a ton out there on what he was dealing with. Excuse me. These offseason injuries, they don't have to give a lot of information, so sometimes they won't. So the expectation is he's back by training camp, but let's be honest, that's what every fucking team says. So one of those guys that we just want to keep on a list and make sure, hey, you know, how's this tracking? How's this going? And then Greg Dulcich, a guy who fantasy community has fallen in love with for the past 2 seasons for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because he looks good running around in shorts and has long flow hair or what. But, he's been dealing with hamstring injuries for the past 2 seasons. He got injured first week of the season and then re-injured himself again, missed most of the season last year. Now, the injury within itself is only about a 2 to 3 month recovery timeline, and, you know, he's got closer to 10, 11 months. But are you trusting in any way, you know, Greg Dulcich to really come back and show you anything this year?
I wouldn't necessarily say no, but I want to just make sure that he's not making his way up to Green Bay and getting his hamstrings strength tested. Christian Watson's kind of had the same issue, and they found a 10% difference between his hamstrings. Holy shit, after 2 years of dealing with
that's so bad, man.
We come up with a 10% difference in hamstring strength. Like that should be something, as you walk into training camp, let's do some baseline testing or
that
something.
Is undergraduate level, like introductory stuff, man. How are you at the top of your profession at the highest level and you're not checking asymmetries between these guys? I mean, like the technology and the force plates that I know they have available to them, this should be we talked about the Packers situation. Yep. Is it a similar situation here, or is it just a guy who just doesn't know when to cool it off? I mean, we have patients all the time. We tell them, look, your hamstring is gonna feel better before it's actually healed. Right. It is a very high re-injury rate. Do not run. Do not sprint. It's hard to tell that if it's hard to tell it to soldiers, it's hard to tell it to professional athletes that rely on their body and are used to performing at a high level. So we'll see what's going on there, but really. We'll kind of move over to the fantasy side here with Troutman and Dulcich, right? Right now, Troutman's listed at tight end 1, and he's going at tight end 53, and then Dulcich is going at tight end 37, listed as tight end 2. So basically, somebody's got to fucking play this position on this team, right? Yep. So, it's again, we talked about the quarterback situation. Is it really worth? I guess it's worth the conversation. Are you taking a shot at either of these guys, or is this something you just want to stay away from completely?
I'm staying away from him in general, but I think Dulcich, depending on how he starts, like he could be like that waiver wire pickup for the week that you're starting tight ends out, kind of a thing. I think between the two, I would probably take Dulcich just production wise, but at the same time, like neither of these guys are going to be 10 points a week kind of guys, most likely. Like they're not, neither of them are going to be real consistent, especially with the quarterbacks that they have. So I'm probably passing on both of them unless, it's a bye week and I have to have somebody. Greg Dulcich is sitting there. Let's give him a toss up and just hope for the best.
It's hard. I mean, there's also a standpoint that, Sean Payton may just hate Greg Dulcich because last year he just wouldn't play him. But I mean, Dulcich did have 400 yards his rookie year, and Troutman has never gone over 275 in his 4 or 5 years in the league. So it's hard to get excited about either of these teams. But some guys I think we can get excited of. We talked about the QB concerns. We talked about, who are the pass catchers outside Cortland Sutton. The secondary as well is an interesting position where, you got Pat Surtain, top, hands down, one of the best players of the position. But outside of that, we got a lot of question marks, including Caden Stearns, who has he's a good prospect, but he just can't stay on the damn field. So some interesting things. But in the fantasy realm, let's talk about Javonte Williams and Cortland Sutton. Javonte Williams going around RB29, Cortland Sutton about wide receiver 42. Talk to me about a little bit of that, those guys who we know are going to be getting some carries and touches throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, Cortland Sutton, if you're in your average 10-12 team league, that's a wide receiver 3, if not wide receiver 4. He's their number 1 option
by far,
right? So I think getting Sutton as wide receiver, what'd you say, 40 something?
42. It's insane.
Yeah, 42. I think that's a steal. You're getting a wide receiver 1. Of course, we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be. He had his ups and downs throughout the season last year, but at the same time, like they got to throw the ball to somebody. And for the most part, like we've been talking about, like we're not super high on these Denver Broncos, so they're going to be behind in some of these games, and they're going to be throwing the ball a little bit. So
somebody's got to be. Yep. Exactly.
So I'm kind of liking Sutton going at 42. Javonte Williams, I think that's probably around where he needs to be. Because like we talked about, this is kind of like a 3-4 horse rotation, right? And yes, Javonte Williams is probably that number 1 guy, but we know P. Ryan's going to get some carries. We know McLaughlin's going to get some carries. Audric Estime, whatever.
Yeah.
Coming out of Notre Dame, he's probably
kid's a tank, man. Kid's a tank.
Exactly. So, who really knows where or the bulk of the carries is going to end up being here in Denver? Most likely Javonte Williams, but that's why you're seeing him at kind of like that RB 2.5, 3 position.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I want to like Javonte Williams because I do think there's a chance that this Denver team could run the ball 30 times, right? With their issues at quarterback.
Sure.
But you're right. It's a lot. I mean, you got Fearon, you got McLaughlin, you got the Estime kid. A Javonte Williams of his rookie year or his first year, yeah, he looked really good. Now, last year he was coming off the ACL tear. It was kind of expected for him to have a slower year. But I'm just nervous that if he doesn't start producing right away, they're going to just start moving on to the hot hand. And he's going to begin down. But, I mean, for his credit, last year, I'm looking at his game logs. He was getting double-digit touches in mostly every game. It did kind of taper off. He had a little stretch where he was 15 carries for 82, 27 for 85, 21 for 79. And it kind of tapered off from there. So, I think you're right. I think Javonte Williams is probably going around where he should be. But I think Courtland Sutton is going way too low. Entirely too low. I mean, he had 10 touchdowns last year and almost 800 yards. And that was with, quarterback concerns already. It's not like they had a great quarterback situation last year. So I think Courtland Sutton has proven that he's kind of a guy that can be.
He's probably taken a step down in terms of wide receiver too. Like, I would probably put Judy above Josh Reynolds. They're fairly even, but I would still probably put Judy above Reynolds.
Yeah, I mean, Judy's definitely the better talent for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he just couldn't stay on the damn field and actually produce. But I like Sutton. So, and that's going to lead me right into my best bet for this team. A weird freaking team, right? We talked about it. How are they? I don't even know how they were 8-9 last year with a team that just roster wise didn't look great, and nothing excitement this year. So I'm going to stay away from their win total because this is a team that I could really see winning 3 games or having another 8-win season, right? Because they're good enough, but they don't have that flash, that kind of like pizzazz that really excites me and really wants me to back them. But Courtland Sutton is a guy I want to back. Over 5.5 receiving touchdowns on the year at plus 110. He had 10 touchdowns last year. I just think, again, they've got to throw it to somebody. He's a big 6'4" wide receiver. He's a big target. Whether you're talking about a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix or whether you're talking about Jarrett Stidham or the MILF hunter himself and Zach Wilson, I think he's an easy big target in the red zone, right? And I don't think this team is that bad where it's a Carolina Panthers situation where they're just never going to get into the red zone. I think that, he's someone that can have some touchdowns. He's a clear wide receiver 1. And then the other one here, we talked about the quarterback room and the concerns. Give me Jarrett Stidham to be the week 1 starter at plus 650. Look,
the wily Denver vet.
Exactly. I mean, you got, so I was just looking at it, right? Bo Nix, he's 24 years old. You've got Zach Wilson, also 24 years old, even though he's been in the league for a little bit. But Bo Nix is definitely, absolutely 1,000% the quarterback of the future, right? But you got a team that on paper is not very good. You really do not want to roll a rookie quarterback out there and kind of hurt their confidence when you don't know what running back you're really going to be rolling out there. You've got question marks all over the field. So Sean Payton just loves Jarrett Stidham. He got him when free agency opened right away last season. He run out of his way to get Jarrett Stidham when nobody in the world wanted him. He didn't have to get him on the first day, but he proved a point, right? And we saw that come up. You just talked about it. Russell Wilson got benched with a winning record for Jarrett Stidham, right? I mean, the fact that Jarrett Stidham right now is listed as QB1 on the depth chart, he's going to go in. It's going to be an open competition. But I think Sean Payton's got a little bit of a liking for the way Jarrett Stidham plays. He's definitely obviously got, I guess he doesn't have as much experience as Zach Wilson, but you can't roll Zach Wilson out there after what we saw him coming off of. Yeah. So I just like the situation where it's plus 650. I think that's just the value there. With you got a coach who really likes him, and you got a situation where if I wouldn't roll out the rookie to kind of get slaughtered right away in week 1. What about you? What say you for this Denver Broncos team?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton. I think in general, Denver is a little bit worse than they were last year. Like they had so many different moving parts last year that it's so surprising that they won 8 games. Their roster is okay. Like we were saying earlier, like they're okay everywhere, but they're not really great anywhere either. And for the most part, they didn't really lose a ton. They had a couple good pickups in terms of the offseason. We'll see where this quarterback thing goes. but I don't see them necessarily losing 3 more games than they did last year. Like, I still think they're like a 6-win, 7-win team.
Yeah.
Like, I think them and the Chargers are like the same basically when it comes down to the end of the day. I like Denver's defense, but their offense is just they're okay, and it's just really hard to see or hard to tell what they're gonna put on the field. So I do like the Broncos over 5.5 at plus 105. But that's really about it when it comes to the Broncos. There's so many question marks in terms of who's getting the carries, who's getting the receptions, who's going to be that quarterback, that I wasn't really comfortable putting any, stat prop features out there. So I just stuck with the over 5.5.
Yeah, no, I actually don't hate this at all. I may actually play it myself. It's just interesting because I agree with you. I don't think this Broncos team is three losses worse than they were last year. The same token, the same way I don't think that the LA Chargers were 3 wins better than they were last year, right? I think, there was a little bit of change, but not that much. I think that's a big overcorrection, and I think they probably play into each other a little bit. So I like that.
Nix is like a 7th.
He's as old as Zach Wilson.
He's like a 7-year college vet. So, I think he started like 80 games in college. So he might come in and like the Denver air up out there. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think he does bring you a decent floor. I don't know about his ceiling, but I think he does bring you a decent floor there. And again, they've got good enough guys with Sutton and Javonte Williams and Josh Reynolds, but I can't see this team being an 8-win or 9. Well, they won 8 games last year, but I can't see them being anything crazy. But definitely, I don't think they're as bad as people are projecting them to be.
I agree.